Welcome to African Folktales by Tammy. Please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more interesting stories. Also share this story to someone who might be interested. Let's get into the story. Rosemary and Kichi were the kind of couple everyone admired in the quiet town of Omofe. They lived in a modest two-bedroom bungalow painted in soft cream, tucked in a serene neighborhood. Though not wealthy, their love was rich, a bond forged through shared dreams and unwavering support. Kichi, a teacher at Sunrise Academy, often joked about how lucky he was to marry a woman like Rosemary, a rising accountant at Emerald Financials. Rosemary's day often started before dawn. She would prepare Kichi's favorite breakfast, yam porridge with pepper sauce, pack his lunch, and kiss him goodbye before heading to her demanding job. At night, they would sit together planning their future, saving for their dream house, traveling to Abuja for a vacation, and eventually starting a family. Their love was their sanctuary in a world filled with challenges. But fate had a way of testing even the strongest of bonds. It began with a phone call. Kichi, Mama Kichi's stern voice echoed through the receiver. "I'm coming to stay with you for a few weeks. This village life is too lonely for me, and my health hasn't been the best." Kichi hesitated. He knew his mother's fiery temper and strong opinions could disrupt their peace, but he also felt a sense of duty. "Of course, Mama, you're always welcome," he replied. When Kichi told Rosemary, she smiled, though a small pang of unease crept into her heart. "It'll be nice to have her here. She might enjoy Omofe's calmness," Rosemary said, masking her anxiety with optimism. Little did she know, Mama Kichi was a storm disguised as a visitor. The day Mama Kichi arrived, she was welcomed with warm smiles and a spread of Rosemary's best dishes: jollof rice, grilled chicken, and steamed vegetables. But instead of gratitude, the elderly woman scoffed. This rice is too soft. Didn't your mother teach you how to cook properly?" Rosemary's smile faltered, but she quickly recovered. "I'll make sure it's firmer next time," she said, choosing peace over conflict. Kichi chuckled nervously, patting his mother on the shoulder. "Mama, let's not criticize. Rosemary worked hard on this meal." But Mama Kichi was just getting started. By the second day, she was rearranging the living room, complaining about the curtains being too modern, and declaring that the house lacked the warmth of a traditional home. Rosemary tried to accommodate her mother-in-law's preferences, even changing the curtains, but nothing seemed to please her. The real trouble began when Mama Kichi started making cutting remarks about Rosemary's career. "What kind of wife comes home after her husband? A real woman should prioritize her home over some office job," she said one evening, her voice dripping with disdain. Kichi shrugged and said nothing, while Rosemary bit her lip, swallowing her retort. Weeks turned into months, and the tension in the house grew thicker. Mama Kichi openly expressed her disapproval of the marriage, saying things like, "I prayed for a respectful traditional wife for my son, not someone who thinks she's better than him." Each comment was a dagger to Rosemary's heart, but what hurt more was Kichi's silence. She hoped he would defend her, but he seemed torn between his mother and his wife. Rosemary started to feel like a stranger in her own home. The woman who had once been full of joy now cried herself to sleep, silently praying for strength. She confided in her best friend, Ada, who advised her to confront Kichi. "He needs to understand how much this is affecting you," Ada said. But when Rosemary tried to talk to her husband, he dismissed her concerns. "Mama is just old-fashioned," he said. "Don't take her words to heart." Rosemary felt the walls closing in. She loved Kichi deeply, but his inability to stand up for her was breaking her spirit. She began to wonder if their love was enough to survive the storm that Mama Kichi had brought into their lives. The perfect beginning was unraveling, and Rosemary could feel the cracks in their once solid foundation. Yet she held on, hoping that the man she married would remember the promises he made to protect her, to cherish her, and to put their love above all else. But hope, like a candle in the wind, flickered dangerously close to extinguishing. The house in Omofe, once a haven of laughter and love, now echoed with tension. Mama Kichi's presence was like a shadow, looming over Rosemary's every move. It wasn't just the cutting remarks or the constant nitpicking. It was the suffocating realization that Kichi was unwilling or unable to intervene. Rosemary began to feel trapped, her bright world dimming under the weight of her mother-in-law's disdain. One Saturday morning, Rosemary decided to clean the house while Kichi attended a teacher's workshop. As she scrubbed the tiles in the kitchen, Mama Kichi entered, her hands on her hips. "You call this clean? Look at the corners. Dirt everywhere. You young girls have no idea how to take care of a home. If you weren't so busy running to your job, maybe you'd do this properly." Rosemary clenched her jaw, forcing herself to stay calm. "Mama, I'll go over the corners again," she said quietly. But inside, her frustration was boiling over. She had spent the past hour on her knees, scrubbing every inch of the floor, only to be met with criticism. Later that day, when Kichi returned, Rosemary approached him in the bedroom. "Kichi, your mother is making it very hard for me to live peacefully in this house. She criticizes everything I do and treats me like I'm worthless." Kichi sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Rosemary, she's just set in her ways. She doesn't mean to hurt you." "She doesn't mean to hurt me?" Rosemary's voice trembled. "She tells me I'm not good enough for you. She insults my cooking, my cleaning, everything. Kichi, this is not fair." He pulled her into a reluctant hug. "Please, my love, just be patient. She'll come around." But Mama Kichi showed no signs of coming around. If anything, her hostility escalated. She began interfering in Rosemary's finances, questioning every purchase. One afternoon, she confronted Rosemary about a new pair of shoes. "These fancy things," she sneered. "You're wasting my son's money on nonsense. Do you even think about the future?" Rosemary's patience snapped. "Mama, I work hard for my money. I don't need anyone's permission to buy what I need." Mama Kichi's eyes widened in mock indignation. "Your money? This is my son's house. Everything in it is his, including you." That night, Rosemary broke down. Sitting on the edge of their bed, she poured out her frustrations to Kichi. "How long is this going to continue? Your mother treats me like a stranger and you let her. Do you even care how much this is hurting me?" Kichi looked away, guilt flickering in his eyes. "Rosemary, she's my mother. I can't throw her out. She has nowhere else to go. So I'm supposed to keep enduring this?" Rosemary's voice cracked. "This is our home, Kichi, our sanctuary. How can you let her destroy it?" But Kichi's silence spoke volumes. Rosemary realized that her husband's loyalty was divided and she was losing. The days turned into weeks, each one more unbearable than the last. Mama Kichi's accusations became sharper. She began telling neighbors in the community that Rosemary was a poor wife, spreading rumors that painted her as a selfish woman who spent all of Kichi's earnings on herself. Rosemary overheard one such conversation while walking back from the market. Mama Kichi stood with Mrs. Olumide, a nosy neighbor. "This modern generation," Mama Kichi said, shaking her head dramatically. "They don't know how to keep a home. All they care about is money and appearance. My son works so hard and his wife squanders everything." Rosemary's hands tightened around her basket, tears of anger and humiliation stinging her eyes. She hurried past them, her heart pounding. That evening, she confronted Kichi once again. "Do you know what your mother is telling people about me? She's ruining my reputation in this community." Kichi sighed, exhausted. "Mama is old. Sometimes she says things she doesn't mean." "She doesn't mean them?" Rosemary said, her voice rising. "When will you stop making excuses for her?" But Kichi only walked away, leaving Rosemary feeling more alone than ever. She began to wonder if love was enough to endure this storm. How long could she keep fighting for a marriage where her voice wasn't heard? The walls of their home, once filled with warmth and laughter, now felt like a prison. Yet, somewhere deep inside, Rosemary resolved to fight back, not with anger or words, but with strength and dignity. She would not let Mama Kichi or even Kichi's passivity break her. As she lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, a plan began to form in her mind. She would take control of her life, no matter what it took. The storm might rage on, but Rosemary would not let it destroy her. The days in Omofi grew heavier for Rosemary, her once vibrant spirit now a shadow of itself. Each morning she plastered on a smile, burying her pain beneath layers of strength. Mama Kichi, however, grew bolder in her tyranny, finding fault in everything from how Rosemary ironed Kelechi's shirts to the way she arranged the pantry. One fateful evening after a grueling day at work, Rosemary arrived home to find the atmosphere unusually tense. Mama Kelechi was seated in the living room, her face set in a deep scowl. Kelechi sat beside her, looking uncomfortable. The moment Rosemary walked in, Mama Kelechi pounced. "So, you've been keeping secrets," she began, her voice sharp and accusatory. Rosemary frowned, confused. "Secrets? What are you talking about?" Mama Kelechi held up a piece of paper, an invoice for an expensive piece of jewelry Rosemary had purchased months ago. It was a gift she had bought for herself after receiving a promotion. The accusation in her mother-in-law's eyes was chilling. This is where my son's money is going." Mama Kelechi barked. "You spend his hard-earned money on things you don't need while he works himself to the bone." Rosemary's heart sank. She turned to Kelechi, searching support. "You know that's not true. I paid for that with my own money, Kelechi. Tell her." But Kelechi said nothing. He avoided her gaze, his silence speaking louder than any words could. Rosemary felt a sharp stab of betrayal. How could he let his mother paint her as a parasite when he knew the truth? "Mama," Rosemary began, her voice shaking with controlled anger, "I earn my own money. I've been paying for this household, everything from rent to groceries, while Kelechi contributes what he can. Don't accuse me of something I didn't do." Mama Kelechi's laughter was bitter. "Do you hear her, Kelechi? She's trying to make herself the hero. As if my son isn't the one providing for this family." "Such arrogance!" Rosemary turned to Kelechi, her voice breaking. "Kelechi, say something, defend me." But Kelechi, caught between his wife and his mother, chose the coward's path. "Rosemary, let's not make this a big deal. Mama just misunderstood." "Misunderstood?" Rosemary's fists clenched. His refusal to take a stand felt like a knife in her heart. She stormed into their bedroom, slamming the door behind her, tears streaming down her face. This wasn't the man she had married, the man who had promised to protect her, to stand by her side through thick and thin. As she cried into her pillow, memories of their early days flooded her mind. She had believed in their partnership, their shared dreams. But now those dreams felt like distant echoes, overshadowed by his mother's presence and his unwillingness to prioritize their marriage. That night, Rosemary couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with thoughts of escape. How long could she endure this? How long could she keep fighting for a man who wouldn't fight for her? Her love for Kelechi was deep, but even love had its limits. The next morning, she woke with a steely resolve. If Kelechi wouldn't defend her, she would defend herself. She began to document every expense she had covered, creating a detailed record of her contributions to their household. She also started discreetly moving her personal belongings to her office at work, piece by piece. Mama Kelechi noticed Rosemary's growing distance, but took it as submission, believing she had finally asserted dominance. She didn't realize Rosemary was preparing to leave, a departure that would shatter the fragile peace in the household. As the days passed, Rosemary continued her quiet preparations. She spoke less, avoided confrontations, and poured her energy into her job. At night, when Kelechi tried to talk to her, she would feign exhaustion. The emotional chasm between them grew wider, but Kelechi didn't seem to notice. Or perhaps he chose to ignore it. One evening, as Mama Kelechi sat at the dining table, criticizing Rosemary's choice of dinner, Rosemary looked at her with a calmness that was unsettling. "Mama," she said, her voice even, "a day will come when you'll realize how wrong you've been." "I only hope it won't be too late," Mama Kelechi scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. "Empty threats. You'll stay because you need my son. Women like you always do." Rosemary didn't respond. She simply smiled, a smile that carried the weight of her unspoken plans. In the quiet of the night, as the household slept, Rosemary sat by the window, staring at the moonlit streets of Omofe. She felt the stirrings of freedom, the faint whisper of a life beyond the suffocating walls of their home. It was a bittersweet feeling. She still loved Kelechi, but she loved herself more, and she knew she deserved better. Her escape was no longer just a thought. It was a promise to herself, to her dignity. Rosemary's days became a delicate balancing act between maintaining appearances and carefully orchestrating her escape. She knew that if she revealed her plans too soon, Mama Kelechi would twist the narrative, painting her as an ungrateful wife abandoning her husband. She couldn't afford that, not when the truth was far more damning. She started with the finances. Over the years, Rosemary had ensured that their joint expenses were meticulously documented. From the rent payments to the groceries and utility bills, she had been the one keeping their home afloat. She compiled every receipt, every bank statement, and every transaction into a detailed file. She even included her salary slips, highlighting the disparity between her earnings and Kelechi's modest income as a teacher. By the second week, she had moved most of her personal belongings to her office at Emerald Financials. Each morning, she packed a small bag under the guise of needing extra work materials. Her colleagues noticed her frequent trips to the storage room but didn't pry. They assumed she was simply reorganizing her workspace. Only her best friend, Ada, knew the truth. "You're really going to leave?" Ada asked one afternoon as they sat in the company's cafeteria. Her voice was a mix of disbelief and admiration. "Rosemary, are you sure this is what you want?" Rosemary stirred her tea, her eyes distant. "Ada, I've given everything to this marriage. I've sacrificed my peace, my dignity, and my happiness. But what have I gotten in return? Silence, indifference, betrayal." She sighed, her voice thick with emotion. "I love Kelechi, but I can't love him at the expense of myself. I deserve better." Ada reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "You're stronger than most people I know. Whatever happens, I'm here for you." Back at home, Mama Kelechi continued her reign of terror, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath Rosemary's calm exterior. One evening, she barged in the bedroom as Rosemary was folding laundry. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" she sneered. "Walking around with that smug look on your face. Let me tell you something. You're nothing without my son, nothing." Rosemary folded the last shirt and placed it in the drawer before turning to face her mother-in-law. "Mama, you're entitled to your opinion, but you don't know me. And one day you'll regret everything you've said." Mama Kelechi laughed bitterly. "Regret? Me? Never. I've been protecting my son from women like you. I've seen your kind before, gold diggers pretending to be virtuous." Rosemary simply smiled, a quiet confidence radiating from her. "We'll see, Mama." The following week, Kelechi came home early to find Rosemary working on her laptop in the living room. "Hey," he said, sitting beside her. "You've been distant lately. Is everything okay?" Rosemary looked at him, her heart aching. She wanted to tell him everything, to make him understand the depth of her pain. But she knew it wouldn't matter. He had made his choice long ago. "I'm fine, Kelechi, just busy with work." He nodded, accepting her answer without probing further. It was this passivity that hurt the most. The man who had once been her partner, her confidant, now felt like a stranger. That weekend, Rosemary decided to put the final piece of her plan into motion. She spent the entire Saturday cleaning the house, cooking a lavish meal, and attending to every detail with precision. Mama Kelechi was smug, assuming this was Rosemary's way of apologizing for her perceived faults. During dinner, as they sat around the table, Rosemary looked at Kelechi and said, "I need to talk to you after this." He glanced at her, surprised. "Can it wait?" "No," she said firmly, "it can't." The meal continued in strained silence, the air thick with unspoken tension. Rosemary ate slowly, her mind racing. She knew this conversation would change everything. She had rehearsed it in her head 100 times, but now that the moment was near, she felt a pang of doubt. Was she making the right decision? Could she truly walk away from the life they had built together? As the dishes were cleared and the house settled into its usual quiet, Rosemary steeled herself for what was to come. She would not waver. She would not let fear dictate her life any longer. The plan was set. The only question now was whether Kelechi and his mother were ready for the truth. Rosemary doubted they were, but that was no longer her concern. This was her moment, her chance to reclaim her life, and she would take it. The night was quiet in Omofe, the kind of stillness that hinted at an impending storm. Rosemary sat on the edge of the bed, her file of documents clutched in trembling hands. Kelechi was sitting across from her, his confusion evident as he watched her struggle to find the words. "What's this about, Rosemary?" he asked, his voice laced with a mix of worry and annoyance. Rosemary took deep breath, her chest tightening. "Kichi, I've tried to talk to you for months. I've told you how your mother's behavior has affected me. But every time you dismissed me. You told me I was overreacting." Kichi sighed, rubbing his temples. "Rosemary, we've been over this. Mama is just difficult. You need to understand." "No." Rosemary's voice cracked, but her resolve was firm. "I don't need to understand anything anymore. I've given everything to this marriage, everything. And what have I gotten in return? Criticism, disrespect, and a husband who refuses to stand by me." Her words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Kichi opened his mouth to respond but faltered. Rosemary reached for the file, placing it on the bed between them. "Do you see this?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "These are all the bills I've paid, the groceries I've bought, the rent I've covered, all the things your mother has accused me of wasting your money on. She doesn't even know that I've been the one keeping this house afloat." Kichi stared at the documents, his face a mask of disbelief. "Rosemary, what are you saying?" "I'm saying," she continued, her voice breaking, "that I have carried this family while your mother tears me down and you stand by and do nothing. I'm saying that I'm done being disrespected in my own home. And I'm saying I'm leaving." The finality of her words sent a chill through the room. Kichi's eyes widened in shock. "Leaving, Rosemary? You can't be serious. We're married. We vowed to be together through everything." Rosemary's laugh was bitter, a sound that made Kichi flinch. "A vow? You've broken that vow every time you let your mother belittle me. Every time you chose her silence over my tears. You don't get to use our vows now." The bedroom door creaked open, and Mama Kichi stood there, her face twisted in anger. "What nonsense is this?" she demanded. "You're leaving. Where will you go? You have nothing without my son." Rosemary stood, her back straight, her eyes blazing. "Nothing, Mama. I've built a career. I've built a life, and I will take everything I've worked for. Unlike you, I don't need anyone to validate my worth." Mama Kichi scoffed. "You're bluffing. Women like you always come crawling back." Rosemary stepped closer, her voice calm but steely. "Watch me." She turned back to Kichi, who was now on his feet, desperation etched across his face. "Rosemary, please. Let's talk about this. Don't leave." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away. "I begged you to listen, Kichi. I begged you to choose me, to fight for me. But you didn't. Now I'm choosing myself." Without another word, Rosemary walked out of the room. She didn't pack a single suitcase. Everything important was already waiting for her in the apartment she had quietly leased weeks ago. As she reached the front door, she paused. Turning back, she addressed Mama Kichi one last time. "You said I was nothing without your son. But the truth is, he is nothing without me. And now you both will see what life is like when I'm gone." The door closed behind her, the sound echoing through the house like the toll of a bell. Kichi and Mama Kichi stood frozen, the weight of her departure sinking in. For Rosemary, the cool night air felt like freedom. She walked down the moonlit streets of Omofe, her heart heavy, but her spirit soaring. She had lost so much in that house, but she had found something far more important, herself. As she reached her new apartment, Rosemary allowed herself to cry. They weren't tears of regret but of release. She was finally free. She didn't know what the future held, but she was certain of one thing. She would never allow herself to be diminished again. Back at the house, Kichi sank into a chair, his hands in his hair. Mama Kichi tried to console him, but her words rang hollow. For the first time, Kichi realized the cost of his silence. He had lost the one person who truly cared for him, and there was no one to blame but himself. The days after Rosemary's departure were a blur for Kichi and Mama Kichi. The once lively home was now eerily quiet, the air heavy with regret. Mama Kichi, who had always prided herself on her dominance, found herself unnerved by the emptiness that now filled the house. Kichi, on the other hand, was drowning in guilt. Each corner of the house reminded him of Rosemary, her laughter in the kitchen, her soft humming while folding laundry, the way she always made their home warm and inviting. He realized too late that she had been the backbone of his life and he had let her slip away. Mama Kichi, however, was far from repentant. "She'll be back," she said one evening, sipping her tea. "Women like her can't survive on their own. She'll realize her mistake." Kichi said nothing. Deep down, he knew Rosemary wasn't coming back. She had left with a strength he hadn't known she possessed, and he had no one to blame but himself. Rosemary's new life in the quiet neighborhood of Aweli State was both liberating and daunting. Her apartment was modest but cozy, a blank slate for her to build her future. She spent the first few days unpacking her belongings, carefully arranging her life piece by piece. It was a therapeutic process, each box unpacked a step closer to reclaiming her identity. Despite her newfound freedom, there were moments of doubt. Late at night, when the world was still, Rosemary found herself wondering if she had made the right decision. But then she would remember the suffocating feeling of living in that house, the constant battle to prove her worth, and the man who had failed to defend her. She knew she had done what was necessary. At work, her colleagues noticed a change in her. She seemed lighter, more focused. Ada, ever the supportive friend, frequently checked in on her. "You're glowing," Ada said one afternoon as they shared lunch. "It's like a weight has been lifted." Rosemary smiled. "It has. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm in control of my life." But the road ahead wasn't without its challenges. Kichi began calling, leaving long voicemails apologizing and begging her to return. He promised to change, to set boundaries with his mother, to be the husband she deserved. Each message tugged at her heart, but Rosemary knew words without action meant nothing. One evening, Kichi showed up at her apartment unannounced. His face was drawn, his eyes red with unshed tears. "Rosemary, please," he pleaded. "Let me make this right." Rosemary stood in the doorway, her arms crossed. "Kichi, I begged you for months to listen to me. I cried, I pleaded, and you ignored me. Now that I've left, you suddenly want to change?" "I was wrong," he admitted, his voice trembling. "I see that now. I should have defended you. I should have chosen you." She sighed, her heart aching for the man she had once loved. "Kichi, I loved you with everything I had. But love isn't enough. Respect and trust are just as important, and you let me down when I needed you most." He dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "I'll do anything to fix this." But Rosemary shook her head. "You should have fought for me when I was still fighting for us. It's too late now." With that, she closed the door, tears streaming down her face. She loved him still, but she loved herself more. Back at Omofe, Kichi and Mama Kichi were left to grapple with the fallout of their actions. The house was no longer a home, it was a constant reminder of their mistakes. Mama Kichi's health began to decline, her guilt manifesting in sleepless nights and endless arguments with Kichi. They blamed each other, but deep down they both knew the truth. They had driven Rosemary away. Rosemary, meanwhile, flourished. She threw herself into her career, earning a promotion and building a life she could be proud of. She started attending social events, reconnecting with old friends, and even taking up new hobbies like painting and yoga. Slowly but surely she rebuilt herself. One day, as she walked through the bustling streets of Awel, a sense of peace washed over her. She had faced the storm and emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined to live life on her terms. Kichi and his mother spent the rest of their days living with the weight of their choices, the silence in their home a constant reminder of what they had lost. For Rosemary, however, life was just beginning. She had chosen herself, and in doing so she had won. We've come to the end of this story. Please subscribe to my channel to support me. Thank you.